The Podcasting Dead is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Make sure to subscribe for more podcasts. And while you're at it, drop us a like. If you want to help support the channel and have access to extra content, secret contests, and more, make sure to search for us on Patreon. Patreon.com/thepodcastingdead.
Hello, Walking Dead fans. I'm Justin.
I'm JP.
And we're the Podcasting Dead. If you're new to our channel, please consider subscribing and giving this video a like. We do all kinds of Walking Dead content, including show reviews and more. We used to do show and comic reviews, and then we were very sad when the comic ended because there were no more comic reviews to do. But alas, the Walking Dead gods, or I guess more specifically just Image, have started re-releasing the Walking Dead series in this awesome new color version called The Walking Dead Deluxe. And I can't speak for JP, but I'm loving it.
Oh, dude, it's really cool, man. And I'm hoping that it's going to generate enough interest where Kirkman's going to be like, man, I should do a Negan miniseries or something.
Just keep revisiting, like he did with Negan Lives. Like, he doesn't have to go back to doing it full time, but just give us, like, kind of like the show's going to do, Tales from the Walking Dead. Maybe Carl's in this issue, grown up and, just something. Or go back and find points in the story where you can do little mini thing, like here's what was happening while this, something. Because I definitely think it's safe to say comic fans, I think the sales on this are doing pretty damn well. So I think it's safe to say Walking Dead fans still want more. We're fine. We're grateful for what we got, but if we can get more, we'll definitely take it.
Yeah, and imagine how cool it is for the person reading The Walking Dead for the first time in this format.
And and I really dig how, like, in the back, there's still letters from the editor.
Yeah. Or
letters to the editor, excuse me, like back in those, like the originals. Like right here in the back of issue 4, which we're talking about today, someone was asking, do you have an ending in mind? Is it a finite series? And you get to see Robert Kirkman's original response, not at the moment. He says, I seriously doubt this book will go on forever, but at this point I've plotted well into the future and I see no end. Think of it like a lifetime. Rick's death is not planned. I don't know when it will occur, and I don't know if the books will end when it does occur. We'll see. That's part of the fun. So no planned ending at this time. That was Robert Kirkman's thought at issue 4.
Yep.
And then if you flip onto the back, they always include like neat little things like what do they call it? The cutting room floor where you see how he plans out the issue and all of that. So I think, for new fans and returning fans alike, this is a really, really cool option.
I think so too, man. It's really been a neat thing.
I don't know I think they all have been, but I'm just now realizing, because we've known there's been 3 covers to come out that we've seen in our local comic shop. And you've got cover A, cover B, and cover C. And I never realized that, like, the main, I guess, cover A's were being done by David Finch. And it didn't even occur to me that Tony Moore does usually cover B, and then Charlie Adler does cover C.
Yeah, some really good variants. I might end up having to go back for that Andrea variant.
Yeah. Now, I'm not seeing, I don't know who did that one. That's like an extra one. I guess I forgot there was an Andrea variant, because you got these 3, which that's coming out for issue 4. I guess Charlie Adler might have done. I don't know. I'm tempted to leave here and go right back to the comic shop and take a look at them, but I want to go back to the first couple of issues and try to grab those, because I've said it for a long, long time that I like Charlie Adler's art. I'm not at all disparaging his great work on The Walking Dead, but I'm a big fan of Tony Moore's art with The Walking Dead. I like it. Tony Moore's a little more detailed, I feel. Charlie Adler's, we were talking about this when we were in the comic shop, Charlie Adler's art translated very well for the black and white. Whereas I feel like Tony Moore's art was always begging for color.
Yeah, I think Tony Moore kind of fits the innocence going into the beginning of the series, and
it's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Charlie Adler's is a little more rugged.
And that's kind of when things started getting darker and darker, and Charlie Adler takes over. So I think 2 more issues and Charlie Adler will officially be on it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how his translate to color. Now I'm seeing in the back of this you got a Rob Liefeld cover. I've never been a huge fan of some of his art.
He still can't draw hands or feet.
No.
Look at Rick's hands and feet.
I mean, like, he doesn't...
weird looking.
Why are his hands... It looks like his fingertips have been chopped off.
Yeah. Rob Liefeld, man, that's always been his fatal flaw, hands and feet.
I mean, he's a much better artist than I am, but, like, right there, man, it's a bizarre looking cover. I mean, I don't hate it, but like you said, the fingers are just...
I like the one. It was very different. It was like a Spanish artist, it sounded like. I thought that looked really cool.
Yeah, this one right here. It's the if you have the issue and you scroll to the back, it would be the second.
I thought
cover that they showed.
I would really like to have that.
Yeah, that one's really, really cool. I like that a lot. But yeah, so as we get into issue 4, now in color, which is so cool, we see the first. Well, I don't know if I'd say it. I think it's the first, but it's definitely one of the first that we see times of Rick and Shane at odds, you know.
Yeah, they're finally starting to get on each other's nerves a little bit, and we see that Shane is definitely not the guy to lead the group, in this instance.
No, I mean, Rick has a lot of points. I mean, they're out here. I mean, which then again, though, I see Shane's point. Like, that's the great thing about this storytelling is if you really think about it, you can understand both their points. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like Shane's not necessarily disagreeing that this area can't be dangerous at times, but his whole thought process is he's still holding out hope for the government. The government's going to come save us, and we need to be right here near the city where they'll see us when they fly over, versus if we're out in the country, they could have, saved the world and we'd never know. And, but Rick's point is we're exposed, we're out in the open, it's getting colder, we're at risk of walkers rolling into camp, and then mentions Donna almost died, last issue, but I mean, ultimately, I would side with Rick on this. I do agree. I mean, if the world's going to be saved, eventually you would probably start hearing helicopter. I mean, out in the country or not. I mean, even if it takes some long, I would rather be out in the country and safer, and it take a little longer for us to learn the government has saved the day than to be that exposed and possibly die before the government can come back.
Yeah, and I mean, at this point, it's not like they've seen any signs of the military or anything. I mean,
and any military they've seen has been overrun.
Yeah.
Later in this issue, they see a tank that's just completely surrounded by the dead.
Mm-hmm.
But, so ultimately, Rick agrees to stay, but it's like, hey, if we're going to stay, we need more guns. Like this, if Dono, and, Rick's straight up arming the camp. Rick's like, everybody, he's like Oprah in this scenario. He's like, you get a gun. You get a gun. He wants everybody, including Carl, to have a gun.
Yep.
And I love that, the conversation that he and Lori have, because, it's similar to the show in the sense of, he's telling Carl, when I get back, I'll teach you how to shoot. Mm-hmm. I'll learn you how to shoot.
Yeah.
And, Lori's not liking that, but he's like, we can argue about this when I get back. And I love that this is kind of reminiscent of the show when he leaves to go help get Merle back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because you got the same situation as far as Lori telling him, like, you just got back. I mean, you've only been here 3 days. Why are you going to leave us again? And, it kind of reminded me of that part of the show.
Yeah, they definitely didn't get quite as goopy in the comic as they did in the show. But
no, they didn't.
Yeah.
But so we see Rick is going to go with Carl, and it's here that we, we really are about to learn a lot about Jim.
Oh, yeah. Man, I forgot all about Jim's tragic backstory. Did they really visit that much in the show?
Yeah.
Did they?
They talk about that. They pretty much in the same way. Like they talk about how he saw his whole family get eaten, and he was the only one to make it out. But, Rick, Glenn's getting his map. This is the point where I love how when they asked Jim, he's like, I don't know where any gun stores are. And Jim's just like, corner of Pleasant and 38th Street.
Right.
Like he's been there many times. He knows exactly where it is. And on this way out, that's where Glenn, as they're leaving, just Rick and Glenn, that's when Glenn tells Rick about Jim's whole backstory and how he saw his whole family die and things like that. Ugh. And then now is where we get into the part of the show where it was actually who was it? Was it Andrea? Because in the comic, Glenn mentions that's way further into town than he's ever been, and he's not really comfortable with going that far. Doesn't think it's safe to go that far into town where this gun store is located. Mm-hmm. This is where Rick has this epiphany of, like, we can smother these guts all over ourselves, and they won't smell the difference. And I know it was Rick's idea to chop up the zombies in the show, but wasn't it? It was because in the show you had a whole group of people. You had that forgettable character. Well, I liked him, but then what was his name? The Hispanic guy. He came
Martinez?
back. It won't. Martinez was the governor's right-hand man.
Morales?
Morales, that's it. You got Morales, Andrea, Glenn, Rick, T-Dog, Merle. They had a big group.
Yeah.
I really think it was Andrew and was it Patricia? No, not Patricia. Patricia was Herschel's. Who was the lady that ended up blowing herself up with Dr. Jenner?
Oh, I can't remember.
But you had her too. But wasn't it Andrea that pointed out they smell dead, we don't? I remember them having that conversation in the show. I'm just drawing a blank on who it was that initially brought up. It was
man, I'd be lying if I said I remembered.
I think it was because they're talking and she's like, something smell us, and Rick goes, smell us, and she's like, they smell dead, we don't. It's pretty obvious. Mm-hmm. And that's when Rick gets the idea. But here it's just him and Glenn. And I think that, Rick is the one that kind of comes up with the thought process of they've got to be able to tell us apart from each other because I see them around. They're not trying to eat each other. They're only going after living people. And the smell has got to have something to do with it. I like how Robert Kirkman reminds me a lot of myself as far as like meticulous writing, which I'm not. The difference is Robert Kirkman is a published, celebrated, great writer. I'm just some hick who writes stories on his laptop, and they're not that good and never tries to get them published. But I enjoy writing.
Well, that's how, Robert Kirkman wasn't some dude that came out of like an Ivy League college. I don't even know if he like graduated from college. I think he was working in a warehouse or something and just had a artist buddy. And one thing led to another.
And it's like, he reminds me, he's very detailed in the fact that, like, Rick is saying, something to the effect of, where was it? I noticed a certain point where he's like, maybe it's as simple as the fact that we don't stink like them, but I got to think it has something to do with our smell. We've both got arms and legs. It should be easy, blah, 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 blah. But I mean, like he just gets as specific as it might not be that though. Yeah, that's what it is. He talks about. I'm not saying they're bloodhounds, but they've got to be able to tell when they get up on somebody that this person doesn't stink the way that they do.
Yeah,
and maybe that's the difference. But then we get the same kind of thing as the show with Glenn vomiting twice in the comics.
Yeah,
which I imagine just the smell of like a dead animal. I mean, you notice like you can have a dead raccoon on the side of the road and smell it a damn mile away.
Yeah.
You imagine what a dead person smeared on you, rotting, just putrid flesh would smell like.
Hand in his pocket. Ugh.
And then they get as they're making their way to the city, they find a zombie sitting against a wall and realize Rick's idea worked.
Yeah.
I love that the zombie, like, though Rick gets really close to its face and it's like, ugh.
Oh,
and then Rick's like, it was just swatting my hand away. Go on somewhere. Go eat somebody. I'm full.
Yeah.
But, and then they make their way into the city, which at first looks pretty vacant. I love that Rick's like, what a gloomy goddamn day.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Glenn has a good point. Because sometimes, I don't know if I know I'm not the only one, but sometimes you want the day to reflect your mood, right? Like if you're in a good mood, you want sunny, clear skies and everything's great. If you're having a bad day, you almost want it to be gloomy and, just a reflection of how you're feeling. And I love that Glenn points that out. He's like, well, I'm getting kind of tired of all the sunshine contradicting what's going on down here. But, then they get into the city and then they, turn a corner and realize it's worse than they thought. That's where we see the tank,
yeah.
We see the tank and just the mounds of the dead. And then it plays out similar to the show. Of course, in the show, they didn't go to a gun store.
Rick had the guns with him.
Yeah, Rick had the guns, and they were going back to get Merle. And it's just cool to see how they mix it up in the show, because in the show it's different elements from different episodes thrown in, because the way they escape the city originally is by doing the gut smeared thing. That's Rick first meets them, whereas in here, this is Rick's been to camp, he meets them, and they've gone back into camp, and this is how they're getting it done. But Rick picks up a shopping cart, they get into the gun store and busts in, and it's just like any gun enthusiast's wet dream right here, a completely untouched, fully stocked gun store.
Yeah.
I mean, like, just for the picking, and they're just grabbing everything. And again, an example of Kirkman's detailed writing, Glenn says, because Glenn asks him, how much should we get well, what should we get? And Rick's like, pretty much get a little bit of everything. Just make sure you grab a lot of ammo. And Glenn points out, make sure that we, you can hear the people in the warehouse behind us probably on the mic. But, Glenn makes sure to mention, make sure we don't get any ammo that won't work in the guns we've got, which is a good point. Just, again, a detail Robert Kirkman throws in there, just something that I think a lot of people would skip over. Just grab bullets and guns.
Right. Yeah.
And he's like, hey, make sure we don't have any extra weight that's going to be useless to us.
Yeah, man. You can get them to grab the shopping cart.
Yep. And so they head out, and of course, just like in the show, only, again, in this one, they've got a shopping cart full of guns, but it starts raining. Mm-hmm. And things start looking dire. Rick realizes it's washing off the smell. The zombies start realizing that they might have food right under their nose. And I just remember reading this originally and my gut dropping when the cart turns over.
Oh, God, yeah.
The cart turns over and Rick's telling Glenn, grab up as many as you can in a hurry. And Glenn's like, oh, God, oh, God. And then what was cool about that is the performance by Stephen Yen as Glenn. I could hear Stephen Yen in the show, saying, oh, God, oh, God. Yeah. But then they get most of the guns. But an interesting departure from the show. Well, I don't want to say departure because this came first. But something the comic did, the show didn't, is we see Rick get straight up bit right on the shoulder. But fortunately, it just tore away part of his jacket and it didn't actually get into the skin, which we find out later. But, Rick gets bit and they continue fighting. Blam! Every other panel here says blam in it.
Yeah, some good old-timey comic sound effects.
Rick's pulling a Chris Stapleton and just firing away. And, they make their way back out of town. And then that's when Rick, takes off his jacket, pulls up his sleeves, and realizes, luckily, it didn't break the skin. He's good to go. That sweet jacket he has, now it's missing a shoulder patch.
Yeah.
But then that's where we kind of learn. I don't think we had learned before. We saw Shane make that kind of squinty-eyed look at, the end of, what was it, issue 2 or 3, where he's just kind of standing there like,
Yeah.
But here's where we actually get confirmation. Shane's trying to comfort Lori. She's standing out in the rain. He's like, look, they're going to be back. Rick can make it. After all he's been through, he'll definitely be back. Blah, blah, blah. Standing out here is not going to make him get back any sooner. Let's get in. He's trying to comfort and trying to get her out of the rain, and she's refusing. And that's where we get, I guess, what would have been a bombshell back in the day.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, well, what about that night? Because she tells him, you got to stop this, Shane. Rick's back. He's my husband. And, you get him basically saying, whereas the show kind of made it sound like it was a ongoing thing. Mm-hmm. Here you almost, I don't know, I almost get the feeling that, they weren't sleeping together constantly.
Yeah.
It happened, and Shane had been kind of lusting over her, but she says it was a mistake, and the issue ends.
And that's all she wrote.
But then you flip past that, and I'm feeling sick to my stomach right now because a little behind the scenes. Earlier, I turned my chair, and my chair took this comic. Fortunately, this is the Tony Moore variant cover, but it still makes me feel not happy at all.
Ooh, how did that happen? What, the arm got it?
The arm took the comic and pushed it into the board. And remember, I said, okay, it didn't do any damage. It did. It bent the crap out of that corner, man. Gosh, I wish I had a press.
Yeah, we all do.
I mean, fortunately, again, this is the variant, not the main cover, but still, that made me sick to my stomach.
Yeah,
that sucks butthole. But alas.
Not in a good way.
Well, yeah, sure. But, I mean, you can't tell. I think up on a wall, it'll look fine. I bought the Tony Moore variant, which has, and I also want to point out, I think it's really cool that at least I never noticed where, a lot of times in comics, guns aren't labeled.
Yeah, you said there was some awesome detail on that gun.
Yeah, a lot of times, in comics and cartoons even, if they have a gun, a lot of times, they might have a gun that they are going, they're designing. They're like Glocks. Mm-hmm. A lot of times in like the Telltale Walking Dead games, if they've got a gun, it's usually meant to be a Glock.
Yeah.
But, a lot of times in comics, guns aren't labeled. And a lot of times they're drawn by people that I don't think know a lot about the guns. So the guns end up just kind of being like, if you've ever played Resident Evil, on the original cover of Resident Evil, the video game, the first game ever, The guy, it's commonly known in the evil community, the guy is holding a gun that is not correct. It's like a shotgun and rifle. It's just clearly the artist did not understand guns, and it just drawn this weird amalgamation of everything he had seen with guns. But a lot of times a gun, and this one, I mean, on the Tony Moore, it's specific. I mean, this gun that he's holding, which I would very much love to own, it's an HK Mark 23. And it even has .45 caliber written on it.
Reminds me of Hunter Killers from the Terminator franchise.
Oh, yeah.
Called them HKs.
Yep. But I like that cover. I hate that my stupid chair bent the...
Damn that chair.
And that was only one variant, I think, right? So I can't go switch this out.
I don't think you can do the old switcheroo this time. Darn it.
I'm not saying I won't go check, but
yeah.
But I mean, you can't really tell it. I mean, if I have that up on, I really only bought it because it's so rad looking, and I wanted to put it up on my comic wall.
On the wall.
So I mean, it'll look fine on the wall, I think.
Yeah.
But at least the original one is in pristine condition.
Yeah, both really great covers, man. They've been killing it with the variants.
They have. I really want to go back now and get the Charlie Adler. I mean, I should have known. I mean, like now that I think about it and I look at like the Charlie Adlers, I'm like, oh. That's definitely his art. Why didn't I grab those?
Yeah.
And people at our local comic shop have not been eating up those variants.
Nah, man, there's still some left.
I know for issue 3, because JP and I both work at the comic shop. JP works there a bit more than I do. I typically just do like a day a week, more or less, to help out the owner and to get a sweet employee discount. Mm-hmm. But I'm pretty sure when I was in there Sunday, the variants were still there.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts so far? I know I've ran my mouth a lot. I usually narrate these kind of in that way, like just kind of guide you through the issues, because also there are some people who maybe want to hear the story, but they don't want to buy the comic, or they just are not into the comic. So I kind of give them a summary like I did of the issue just to. So, I mean, I've talked enough. Let's hear your thoughts.
No, man. I mean, it's cool to see the early, rift between Shane and Rick, which, I mean, of course, doesn't get played out for as long as it did in the show, so it's not like we're going to have a whole big ongoing beef between the two. But
that's something I'll say. I think the show did better than the comic, because you'll have that a lot. I mean, overall, the comics, well, it's hard to say which one's better, because, I only read the comics because of the show, but with that said, I read the comics and caught up before the show started. Mm-hmm. So it's like I did read the comics before the show, but I didn't, I'm not one of these OGs that started reading like 2003. I only knew it was a comic because of the promotion for the upcoming show. But, I think in a lot of ways the comic does get a lot of things done better than the show, but the show definitely has its moments that are better than the comics. And I think the Shane and Rick relationship was much better done in the show. And I mean, that's just the showrunner. I don't think Robert Kirkman intended it, obviously to be some long-standing. Shane was just going to be a dark spot in Rick's past, Yeah,
which one thing I can say, I do like the way that Shane goes out in the comic as opposed to the show.
I'm kind of, I like Carl being the one to do it.
Yeah, I just think that was such a defining moment in
Carl.
his development. Yeah, when he, does Shane the way he does him. And, I mean, it was fine in the comic, but, I mean, him just killing a Walker Shane is – I just don't think it's as
impactful on Carl as killing a living Shane who was trying to kill his dad.
A human life, yeah.
Right. No, I agree with you 100% on that as far as the impact. It's just the scene between Rick and Shane is one of my favorites in the entire show.
Oh, yeah.
Everything about that scene, from the acting to the cinematography, I mean, everything. Like, even that shot of them on the heel, like sometimes you get those long shots back where it's them two, they're dark figures standing in like this moonlit field. Oh, it's fantastic. But I do agree with you on like maybe if they would have had Rick stab Shane or something, and then Shane wrestles him and gets the upper hand and Carl has to kill him, could have been the perfect blend of the two. Versus Carl just killing a Walker Shane.
Refresh my memory, if you can. Was the first time Carl took a life on the show? Was it at the prison when Herschel saw him gun those guys
down? Kill that kid?
Was that the first time he killed someone?
I'd believe so. I mean, his mom was already dead when he shot her.
Yeah.
At that point, he killed a zombie Shane. Mm-hmm. He had become an effective zombie killer, but I don't think he had actually killed a live, living human being until he killed that child.
Yeah.
Well, that teenager.
That popped his cherry. Yeah. Okay.
That kid probably was around 15, 16-ish.
Probably, yeah. But he had to go.
In Carl, yeah, no. So I mean, then that was and that was one of those moments. I didn't like Carl much at that point in the show.
I didn't either.
I was not a big fan of Carl at that point. But I did like the point that he made in that episode where he's talking to Rick and, about killing the kid. And he's like, basically tells him, like, all of these people you've let live before, it came back to bite us in the ass. You let Andrew live and he came back and Mom died, and then he names a couple of different times where, people have been allowed to live and it turned out. But he's like, you sat in the room with the governor and let him walk out. Like,
yeah.
So, I like that, but I agree with you. I definitely think Comic Carl, who on the opposite end of the spectrum I liked a lot, definitely having to put down a living Shane who was trying to kill his father had a big impact on Carl's, just character going forward.
Yeah, man, it definitely did.
What are some things you notice, are there any things that you're noticing going back and rereading? Because I haven't read this. Well, I did go back and reread The Walking Dead a while back, but I don't know. It's maybe it's the color, but it feels like I'm reading it again for the first time in like a decade.
Yeah, dude, I definitely hadn't revisited the early issues for a long time. Like I said, it definitely has more of an innocence to it. Weird.
Because we review the show, do you find yourself accidentally wanting to say episode instead of issue as bad as I do? Because I almost always call the issues episodes.
Yeah, a little bit.
What are you looking most forward to revisiting in color now? Like throughout the entire series?
I'm really stoked. Well, for one thing, I'm really stoked to see Adler's artwork colorized. And God, there's so many great moments in the prison saga, Tyrese getting his joint copped by Michonne, Michonne jumping Morgan's bones, Michonne bone. She got around in the comic, man.
Now, refresh my memory. Does Morgan come back to the prison?
No, that doesn't happen in the prison.
Okay, you're just talking about
just
way
in
into
general,
the future.
I
don't say. I thought Morgan came back around Alexandria.
Yeah, like Carol, her ending. Golly, man, the prison was brutal. They could have ended the comic with the prison, and you would have been totally satisfied. I'm glad they didn't. Don't get me wrong, but
yeah, I'm really excited, as bad as it is, to watch to see issue 100 in color.
Oh God, yeah.
We've seen colorized, versions of Glenn getting his brains beat in by Negan, but I'm excited to see it, see the whole thing in color.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of, there's so many great moments in the comics I can't wait to see in color, but I'm telling you, man, if you read the original series and you were like, I'm sure a lot of people were, I'm not paying money to buy something I already own. I would really urge you to reconsider, and no, we're not sponsored or paid for by anybody. AMC, hey, holler at us.
Yeah.
or really, I shouldn't say AMC. I should say Image Comics. But,
AMC, too, though, shall be much kinder to the world beyond if AMC starts throwing us some money.
Yeah, if you are watching the Walking Dead World Beyond, our reviews are not that great. It's not
it's not a good show.
Not really. But, no, I urge you to reconsider. I know at our little small comic shop, issue 1 might be gone, but you can still find tons of the other issues. I would highly recommend tracking down an issue 1 and then getting back into this. It is like a whole new experience with the color.
Oh, yeah, for sure, man. Definitely worth the $3.99.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you what, I'm so into this because I own all of the hardcovers, the collections. And I think those are 2 of the trade paperbacks in hardcover, or maybe 4 of them.
Something like that.
It might be 4 trade paperbacks equal, because it always goes how many issues does the trade paperback have in it? I used to know this. It was
6 usually.
It was the trade paperback had 6 issues in it, and then it's the book either had 2 or 4 trade paperbacks, and the compendiums had 4 of the hardcovers.
Those just too thick.
Yeah, they're not enjoyable for me to read just because I like to keep my stuff in good shape. Even just books that I know aren't worth anything. I just don't like bent corners and chips, and it's broken spines, and it's so hard to read that compendium enjoyably without having to angle it weird and not complete. So I always chose to go with the hardcovers. But if they re-release those in color, well, I'll probably buy them too.
I can't blame you for that.
But yeah, so The Walking Dead Deluxe issue 4. I'm loving that it's coming out consistently every 2 weeks. It really gives me something to look for. I mean, I've already got a lot to look forward to comic-wise, but I mean, this is at the top. And it just speaks volumes about what a good series this is, being I already read it. I know it's going to happen, but yet I am almost as or more excited for this than series that I read that I don't know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, it's a nice little treat.
Monthly
treat.
I'm trying to. I ran my mouth too much this podcast. I'm trying to find more things to ask you so you can get more talk time in.
I mean, I think we've covered the gambit, man. I mean, it was a awesome revisit.
I'm really sad that I've been to the next
one. Yeah, dude, that's always
kind of wrecked my morning. I mean, I have first world problems. I mean, yes, I'm breathing, I'm alive. Blah 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 blah. I have every reason to be happy. I know, but I'm really kind of bummed out that I bent that corner.
Nah, man, I've done that, like try just getting it in the bag and board. Sometimes the loose, corner, not the spine corner, but the other one will get bent, and it does. It's heartbreaking. It really. And
I don't think there were any more of those. I think it was the Andrea variant, and then like the Charlie Adler variant. I think that was really it.
I think so. Yeah.
I might go buy the Charlie Adler variant then at least. Yeah. The only thing about the Charlie Adler variants is, which I get what they're going for, and I'm not, I mean, some people probably love the way they look, but for me, I don't know. I like this one and Tony Moore is just like suck you into the world.
Yeah, the Charlie Adler is just like the pose, almost like a movie poster.
Yeah. And I mean, they're cool, but I just
not great though. Not super great.
They don't suck me in the way that Tony Moore's does.
I wish they were doing like connecting covers, man. That'd be really cool for the first six issues.
Oh, I know. Man, I can't wait to. But that one's the one of Rick holding that HK. That's going on my comic wall. I actually just would move it. I have a man cave, and then I have another side that is like my office / comic room because I had my comics on my man cave side, but I'm OCD and I'm like, I don't. This is like a sports bar feel, and TV shows and movies and cinema and stuff. I don't want anything over here that doesn't relate and blah. So I moved it to the other side, but I've yet to set up anything. 'Cause I actually had a really cool comic setup back in the day on my man cave side. So I'm working on that now, and I've got a lot of wall space that I'm going to cover in some of my favorite comic covers. So
there you go.
And that's actually where you'll be seeing JP and I are soon going to be podcasting from home. Right now we're in an actual studio. But soon we're going to have our home studios that we'll be podcasting from, and we're planning to, if all goes right, we got to play around with it a little bit. We're planning to start doing 100% video podcasts.
That's the goal.
So if we do that, JP's got an immaculate comic wall that if you've ever watched any of our videos, like live streams after The Walking Dead, you've seen it. There's princesses on it.
Yeah, she is.
And then now you'll see mine, hopefully. But let us know what you thought in the comments below. Are you digging The Walking Dead Deluxe? Is there anybody out there who perhaps wasn't getting it, but now you're going to go get it? Let us know what you're thinking. Let's get a conversation going because clearly we love The Walking Dead and love to discuss it. Hence why we are going back through the series, reviewing it again. But nonetheless, we'll see you. If you're here only for The Walking Dead comic reviews, we'll see you in 2 weeks. If you're here just for podcasts in general, we'll see you sometime. Friday, we've got some Walking Dead What Ifs we'll be looking at, which remember, some channel reminders, the Walking Dead What Ifs after... No, didn't we say we're going to skip this Friday and do it on Monday?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there will not be a Walking Dead What If this Friday. However, it will be available on Monday. That was our Monday feels, because on Mondays we usually review the shows, but now that they're both done for the mid-season finale, for the time being, until The Walking Dead comes back, we will be doing Walking Dead What Ifs on Mondays and Weird Wednesdays. I think we're going to move those to a bi-weekly thing because, to be honest, I think we've covered just about every big conspiracy we were interested in.
Well, I need to do some more digging and researching on some stuff. So, yeah, we'll have a deep dive pretty soon. A lot of stuff going on with the Great Reset and some nasty stuff going on, so we'll see.
And I feel like YouTube has started nerfing our channel since we have a playlist with conspiracy in the title. I mean,
well, they're doing that to so many people,
right?
Man.
Because for the longest, we've never been a channel that got crazy amount of views, but we were a channel that for a long time were able to consistently keep at least over 1,000 views on like show reviews. That was up until like a year ago. We were able to, anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 views for show episode reviews, and then we started Weird Wednesday in the Conspiracy Cast like maybe a year ago, maybe not even that long ago. But I've noticed like and it might just be because we suck. So I'm not completely blaming you two. We might just be terrible at what we do, and people are like, I'm out.
Well, and plus the Walking Dead doesn't have the viewership it did, 2, 3, 4 years ago either. So,
but since I've seen where YouTube has gotten a lot of attention for like either like straight up banning and throttling some channels, not putting them in the recommended as much because they talk about conspiracies and it's all this fight against the spread of misinformation. I've sometimes thought that maybe they're throttling our account, and it might not be, but it
could be a shadow ban, man. It absolutely could be.
But so we'll be doing Weird Wednesday every other Wednesday. So yeah, check out our channel, and thank you so much for listening. I'm Justin.
I'm JP,
and we're the Podcasting Dead. YouTube, let our channel go.
I hope so.